On a November morning in 1942, American troops splashed through the surf at Sidi Farouk Beach in Algeria, lugging equipment they barely understood. Hidden among their gear were 5,000 freshly manufactured rocket launchers, devices that would fundamentally alter how wars were fought. These weapons, which would soon earn the nickname Bazooka, represented something extraordinary. A $25 steel tube capable of destroying tanks worth tens of thousands of dollars. Within a year and a half, this simple device would compel the German military to completely overhaul how they deployed their armoured divisions, triggering frantic efforts to replicate American innovation. The principles governing armoured combat were about to shift, and the catalyst wasn't sophisticated engineering or enormous artillery pieces, but rather a straightforward tube that required only basic training to operate effectively. The story truly began 6 months earlier at Maryland's Aberdeen Proving Ground. Colonel Leslie Skinner and Lieutenant Edward Uhl showed up on May 6, 1942, with a weapon literally thrown together that same morning from whatever materials they could scavenge. According to Aberdeen's historical documentation, Uhl had spotted a discarded steel tube in a scrap heap that happened to match his specifications perfectly. The targeting mechanism consisted of nothing more than a wire coat hanger twisted into shape with pliers. Military officials had organised demonstrations of British spigot mortars that day, cumbersome contraptions exceeding 100 pounds and demanding specially trained operators. Major General Gladion Barnes, heading research and engineering, arrived expecting to evaluate these complex British designs, and initially showed little interest in Uhl's crude-looking tube. What happened next changed everything. 5 different spigot mortar crews attempted to hit a moving Stuart tank from 150 yards away. Every single shot missed. The operators wrestled with complicated aiming systems while struggling to pivot their heavy weapons quickly enough. Then Uhl took his turn. His personal account, preserved in Army Ordnance documentation, describes how he wore welding protection for that initial shot, concerned about potential backblast dangers that never materialized. He shouldered the tube, aligned those improvised coat hanger sights, and fired. The rocket streaked out and struck the tank's side directly. 5 seconds later, he'd reloaded and scored another hit. Barnes examined the weapon and immediately compared it to Bob Burns's bazooka, the comedian's makeshift musical instrument. Minutes later, he'd ordered 5,000 units for immediate manufacturing. General Electric's production lines would be running within weeks. By October of that year, General Electric and additional contractors were churning out 5,000 bazookas every month. The pace was unprecedented, transforming an improvised prototype into mass-produced hardware in just 5 months. Each rocket launcher required merely 20 pounds of steel, basic welding work, and simple electrical components totaling $25. The rockets themselves cost $8 apiece. The specifications were remarkably straightforward. A seamless steel tube measuring 54 inches long and 2.36 inches across, weighing 13 pounds total. 2 standard dry cell batteries tucked into the shoulder stock provided electrical ignition. Operators loaded rockets from the rear, connected a wire, and when fired could punch through 3 to 4 inches of armour at 300 yards. Captain Franklin Johnson, working as a training officer at Fort Benning, documented in his official reports that soldiers could achieve effective proficiency with the bazooka in a single afternoon. That same soldier would need weeks mastering a conventional 37mm anti-tank gun. More significantly, a 2-man bazooka team could deploy anywhere regular infantry could reach. Operation Torch launched on November 8, 1942, sending 107,000 American and British troops into North Africa. Among them were units from the 1st Infantry Division, 1st Armoured Division, and 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment, all carrying the first bazookas destined for actual combat. The debut nearly ended in disaster. Historians Michael and Gladys Green documented how General Eisenhower learned the night before invasion that troops had received zero training on this new equipment. The bazookas had arrived in sealed crates stamped with secret warnings and orders forbidding anyone from opening them before the operation commenced. No instruction manuals were included. According to after-action reports from the 1st Infantry Division, soldiers had to figure out how the weapons worked while under enemy fire. Many of the rockets had been damaged by moisture during ocean transport, causing failures or premature detonations. The 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment reported that among their first 20 combat rockets, only 7 functioned correctly. Despite these significant problems, certain units managed to achieve success. Combat logs from the 1st Armoured Division dated November 10, 1942. Note that an anti-tank team destroyed 2 Vichy French Renault tanks using the new rocket weapon near Port Lyaut, confirming the weapon's effectiveness when it actually worked properly. German forces first captured American bazookas during the Battle of Kasserine Pass, which raged from February 14 through 24, 1943. When Afrika Korps units from the 10th and 21st Panzer divisions overran American positions at Sidi Bouzid, they seized substantial equipment quantities from the retreating 2nd Corps. German military archives indicate that 5 intact rocket launchers, along with approximately 20 rockets, were immediately shipped to Berlin for analysis. The Wehrmacht's weapons testing facility at Kummersdorf received them on February 28, 1943. German technical assessments from March 1943, now preserved in the Bundesarchiv, reveal their evaluation. They documented the American rocket launcher as representing a simple answer to infantry anti-tank requirements. Weight registered at 6 kilograms with minimal production requirements. Effectiveness showed penetration of 80 millimeters of armor at 100 meters. They noted this weapon could be mass-produced using basic industrial capabilities. German engineers immediately began developing their own version, expanding the warhead diameter from 60 millimeters to 88. The Raketenpanzerbüchse 43, known as the Panzerschreck, entered production by September 1943. German production records document manufacturing 289,151 Panzerschrecks throughout the war, an impressive number that still fell significantly short of American output. Operation Husky, Sicily's invasion beginning July 10, 1943, marked the bazooka's evolution into a mature weapon system. American forces now fielded the improved M9A1 model, featuring better electrical contacts paired with more reliable M9A1 rockets. The most remarkable bazooka achievement in Sicily occurred near Biscari that July. U.S. Army Ordnance Observer reports describe how an M9A1 bazooka team from the 82nd Airborne Division scored an extraordinary hit on a Tiger tank, penetrating through the driver's vision port, one of the vehicle's rare vulnerable points. While this represented exceptional marksmanship rather than typical performance, it demonstrated the weapon's potential under ideal conditions. The Hermann Göring Panzer Division's war diary for July 11, 1943, recorded that enemy infantry equipped with rocket weapons could destroy armor at ranges between 100 and 150 meters, noting that tank commanders needed to exercise increased caution in urban environments. Colonel James Gavin, commanding the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, reported that the bazooka had given American infantrymen genuine confidence against enemy armor. In Sicily alone, they destroyed 17 German tanks with bazookas, with the psychological effect exceeding even the physical destruction achieved. During the Italian campaign starting September 1943, the bazooka evolved beyond its anti-tank role into a universal problem-solving tool. The mountainous terrain and medieval architecture provided ideal conditions for rocket launcher employment. The December 1943 Battle for Ortona demonstrated this versatility. Canadian military records describe how bazooka teams developed mouse-holing tactics, blasting passages through buildings instead of exposing themselves in dangerous streets. The 1st Canadian Infantry Division's war diary recorded that American rocket launchers proved invaluable during street fighting, performing effectively against fortified houses. By January 1944, American production had climbed to 20,000 bazookas monthly. The M9 model had been introduced, featuring a breakdown design suitable for airborne troops and magneto-ignition that eliminated battery requirements. The M6A3 rocket featured a blunt nose preventing deflection off angled armour. Fifth Army reports from the Italian campaign documented that every infantry battalion now possessed 24 to 36 bazookas. The weapon had become standard equipment, as common as machine guns in unit inventories. The proliferation of bazookas forced fundamental changes throughout German armoured doctrine. Wehrmacht Training Directive 43-18, issued in December 1943, mandated that tanks would not operate in urban areas without infantry support. All buildings required clearing before armour advanced, maintaining minimum 100-metre distances from uncleared structures. Shirts and side skirts had to be maintained on all vehicles. German tank crews began welding extra track links, sandbags and concrete onto their vehicles for additional protection. The Zimmerit anti-magnetic paste applied from December 1943 through October 1944 was partially a response to shaped charge threats. A captured document from the 2nd SS Panzer Division, dated March 1944, stated that American rocket launchers were present in every infantry unit, making speed and shock tactics no longer viable. Methodical advances with infantry screening had become required. By D-Day on June 6, 1944, the bazooka had become integral to American infantry organization. Among the 156,000 Allied troops landing in Normandy were thousands of bazooka teams equipped with the latest M9A1 model featuring optical sights. Normandy's bocage country, with its dense hedgerows creating natural defensive positions, proved ideal for bazooka employment. First Army records show that during the 6 weeks following D-Day, bazookas accounted for 12% of German armoured vehicle losses in the American sector. The 29th Infantry Division's after-action report covering June and July 1944 noted that bazooka teams operating in hedgerow country achieved high success rates against enemy armour, with German tanks increasingly reluctant to advance without extensive infantry reconnaissance. German production records reveal the industrial reality behind their response to the bazooka threat. The Panzer Schreck, while technically superior with its 88mm warhead capable of penetrating 160mm of armour versus the bazooka's 100mm, proved more complex to manufacture. Production comparisons from German and American archives show stark differences. The Panzer Schreck weighed 24 pounds, required 18 man-hours to produce, and cost 150 Reichsmarks. The M9 bazooka weighed 15 pounds, needed only 2.4 man-hours to produce, and cost $25. By August 1944, America had manufactured over 400,000 bazookas. Germany managed 289,151 Panzer Schrecks during the entire war. Americans were outproducing German copies nearly 2-to-1 while simultaneously producing simpler, more portable weapons. The German Ardennes offensive in December 1944 provided severe testing of bazookas under winter conditions. Combat interviews from the 99th Infantry Division, conducted immediately after battle, documented numerous rocket launcher engagements. Technical Sergeant Donald Bracken from the 394 Infantry Regiment reported destroying a Panther tank near Rocherath on December 17, 1944. The rocket struck the rear engine deck, causing the tank to catch fire and forcing the crew to abandon it at approximately 75 yards range. Extreme cold created documented problems. Battery failures in remaining M9A1 models still in service required soldiers to warm batteries inside their jackets. The 2nd Infantry Division reported that rocket propellant burned differently in sub-zero temperatures, affecting both range and accuracy. Despite these challenges, 18th Airborne Corps records show bazookas destroyed or disabled 89 German armoured vehicles during the Battle of the Bulge. One of the most remarkable bazooka employments came from Major Charles Carpenter of the 4th Armoured Division. As documented in his Silver Star citation and confirmed by multiple witnesses, Carpenter mounted 6 M9 bazookas onto his L-4 Grasshopper observation aircraft. His combat record, verified by 4th Armored Division documentation, included 2 Panther tanks destroyed near Aracourt on September 20, 1944, 1 Panzer IV destroyed in October 1944, and 3 armoured vehicles destroyed in November 1944. Carpenter's aircraft, complete with mounting brackets for the bazookas, was discovered in an Austrian museum in 2017 and has since been restored. His innovation demonstrated the weapon's versatility beyond conventional infantry applications. Final production statistics from Army Ordnance records show the M1 totaled 112,790 units, the M9A1 approximately 60,000 units, the M9 reached 26,087 units, the M9A1 approximately 277,800 units, and the aluminum M18 reached 500 units, totaling 476,628 units overall. Rocket production showed 125,000 in 1942, 2,847,000 in 1943, 8,566,000 in 1944, 1944, and 4,065,000 in 1945, totaling 15,666,000 rockets. Unit costs in 1945 showed the bazooka at $19.25, the rocket at $8.85, making a complete system with launcher plus 10 rockets approximately $110. For comparison, German production records show a Panzer IV tank cost 103,000 Reichsmarks, or approximately $41,000. A Panther tank cost 117,000 Reichsmarks, or approximately $47,000, and a Tiger tank cost 250,000 Reichsmarks, or approximately $100,000. Army Ordnance conducted extensive analysis of bazooka effectiveness in 1945 with revealing findings. Average engagement range measured 75 yards. Hit probability at 50 yards reached 85%. Hit probability at 100 yards dropped to 42%. Hit probability at 150 yards fell to 18%. Armour penetration ranged from 3.5 to 4 inches, or 89 to 102 millimeters, with M9A1 rockets. Tank destruction analysis from the European theatre based on First Army records showed tanks destroyed by other tanks accounted for 38%, tanks destroyed by anti-tank guns 31%, tanks destroyed by aircraft 14%, tanks destroyed by bazookas 12%, and tanks destroyed by mines 5%. These statistics likely understate bazooka effectiveness, as many German tanks were abandoned when threatened by rocket teams rather than actually destroyed. Post-war interrogations of German officers conducted by the Strategic Bombing Survey revealed consistent themes about the bazooka's impact. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, German commander in Italy, stated during interrogation that American rocket launchers forced fundamental changes in German tactical doctrine. The speed and shock tactics that brought victory from 1940 to 1941 were negated by the threat of infantry anti-tank weapons. General Heinz Guderian acknowledged in his post-war writings that the proliferation of infantry anti-tank weapons like the bazooka invalidated the independent armour operations that had been central to German doctrine. The bazooka threat influenced German tank development from 1943 onward. German armoured vehicle production records show the addition of Schürzen side skirts to Panzer III and IV models starting April 1943. Application of Zimmerit paste from September 1943, increased side armour on Panther OSFG models, and development of infantry support variants with enhanced anti-personnel armament. These modifications added weight and complexity to German vehicles, reducing their mobility advantage, while American tanks remained relatively simple and reliable. Lend-Lease records document bazooka distribution to Allied forces. The Soviet Union received 8,000 units, the United Kingdom 12,000 units, Free French forces 15,000 units, Chinese nationalist forces 3,000 units, and other Allied nations 23,628 units. Soviet military archives indicate the Red Army found the bazooka effective but preferred their own anti-tank rifles and later the RPG-2, developed partially from bazooka principles. While less publicized than European use, bazookas proved valuable in the Pacific. Marine Corps records from Saipan covering June to July 1944 show bazookas destroyed 28 Japanese tanks and countless fortified positions. The weapon's versatility was demonstrated through various rocket types, including the M9A1 Standard Anti-Tank HEAT round, M10 White Phosphorus Incendiary and Smoke round, and M7A3 Practice round. Marine units particularly valued white phosphorus rockets for clearing cave complexes and destroying Japanese bunkers. At Iwo Jima, the 5th Marine Division expended 1,847 bazooka rockets. The bazooka's continued relevance was proven in Korea when initial M9A1 bazookas proved inadequate against T-34-85 tanks due to degraded ammunition. However, rapid development and deployment of the M20 Super Bazooka with its 3.5-inch rocket demonstrated the weapon system's adaptability. Marine Sergeant Robert Bennett's combat report from Pusan in September 1950 stated that the new 3.5-inch bazookas stopped T-34s cold, achieving first shot, first kill results at 125 yards. The psychological shift was immediate. This rapid adaptation, from problem identification to solution deployment in under 90 days, demonstrated the flexibility inherent in the simple bazooka design. The bazooka embodied American industrial philosophy throughout World War II. Analysis of production methods reveals remarkable manufacturing simplicity. Any factory with basic welding equipment could produce tubes requiring no special alloys or precision machining. Assembly time ran 2.4 man-hours per unit, with training time for assembly workers taking just 2 days. Distribution efficiency meant that by 1944, every infantry company had 5 bazookas, and every infantry battalion had 25 to 35 bazookas, with ammunition readily available through standard supply chains. This contrasted sharply with German production philosophy emphasizing technical superiority over quantity. The Wehrmacht's focus on complex, high-performance weapons limited both production capacity and field maintenance capability. Army training records document the bazooka's impact on infantry doctrine. Pre-bazooka in 1941, infantry anti-tank training focused on anti-tank rifles ineffective against medium tanks, anti-tank grenades requiring suicidal close-range attacks, and Molotov cocktails as desperate measures. Post-bazooka from 1943 to 1945, every infantry soldier trained in bazooka operation through a 2-hour basic course, tank hunting tactics, and coordinated anti-tank defense. The psychological transformation was documented in infantry school reports, noting that the bazooka had given infantry soldiers confidence against armor, with previous tank panic replaced by aggressive tank hunting. Combat units developed innovative bazooka tactics, documented in after-action reports. For urban combat, the 3rd Infantry Division in Italy employed 2-man teams operating from upper floors, targeting tank vision blocks and turret rings, while mouse-holing through buildings. For bocage fighting, the 29th Infantry Division in Normandy used concealed positions in hedgerows, targeting side and rear armour through coordinated multi-team ambushes. For winter warfare, the 99th Infantry Division in the Ardennes warmed rockets inside clothing, employed snow camouflage for approach, and targeted engine compartments for fire kills. Cost-effectiveness analysis from Army Ordnance shows stark comparisons for destroying 1 German tank. Using tanks averaged 2.5 Shermans lost per German tank destroyed, representing approximately $187,500 in tank losses. Using anti-tank guns meant gun and crew training costs of approximately $45,000. Using aircraft, including aircraft losses and munitions, cost approximately $85,000. Using bazookas averaged 5 rockets and occasional launcher loss for approximately $50 total. This 1,000-to-1 cost advantage made the bazooka economically revolutionary. For the price of one $75,000 Sherman tank, the Army could purchase 3,000 bazookas and 20,000 rockets. The bazooka principle of simple man-portable anti-tank weapons became universal in military doctrine. Direct descendants include the M72 Law light anti-tank weapon, AT-4 anti-tank weapon, Carl Gustav recoilless rifle, and the Soviet RPG series. Over 40 nations produced bazooka variants or copies. The fundamental concept of giving infantry portable anti-tank capability remains central to military organization worldwide. The German Tank Museum at Munster includes a permanent display on anti-tank weapons featuring the American bazooka. Their official placard states that the American M1 rocket launcher bazooka revolutionized anti-tank warfare, describing it as simple, cheap, and effective, operable by any soldier with minimal training. German forces captured examples in Tunisia in 1943 and immediately recognized its potential, developing the Panzer in response. By war's end, the presence of bazookas in every American unit had neutralized German armored superiority. The bazooka underwent continuous improvement based on combat feedback. The M1 in June 1942 was the original version with battery ignition, producing 112,790 units. The M9A1 in June 1943 featured a reinforced tube and improved contacts, producing approximately 60,000 units. The M9 in October 1943 introduced two-piece design and magneto ignition, producing 26,087 units. The M9A1 in June 1944 added optical sights and improved coupling, producing approximately 277,800 units. The M18 in April 1945 featured aluminum construction, producing 500 units before war's end. Rocket development paralleled launcher improvement. The M6 featured a pointed nose with 3 inches penetration. The M6A3 had a blunt nose preventing deflection with 4 inches penetration. The M10 carried a white phosphorus warhead. The M7A3 served as a practice round. The Army Military History Institute's comprehensive 1962 study concluded that no single weapon changed battlefield dynamics more than the rocket launcher M1 to M9 bazooka. It democratized anti-tank warfare, giving every infantry unit capability to defeat armor. The German development of their own rocket weapons in response validated the concept. In terms of cost-effectiveness, tactical impact, and strategic significance, the bazooka ranks among the most important weapons of World War II. Analysis of German operational records reveals the bazooka's strategic effect. Pre-bazooka from 1940 to 1942, German armour operated independently with confidence, while infantry fled from approaching tanks and breakthrough and exploitation tactics succeeded. Post-bazooka from 1943 to 1945, armour required constant infantry support as every building and hedgerow became a potential ambush site, making breakthrough operations costly and slow. This operational shift, documented in Wehrmacht war diaries, fundamentally altered European battlefield dynamics. Bazooka production represented American industrial capability at peak production in March 1945, with 42,000 launchers produced, 540,000 rockets produced, 237 subcontractors involved, and 34 states with production facilities. This distributed production model made the supply chain resilient, ensuring no single bombing raid or sabotage could significantly impact bazooka availability, unlike German production concentrated in vulnerable facilities. The bazooka's simplicity enabled widespread adoption. Training records showed average soldiers achieved basic proficiency in 2 hours, with combat proficiency typically achieved after 5 practice rounds. There were no special physical requirements, unlike anti-tank rifles, enabling effective use by soldiers of all backgrounds. This democratization of anti-tank capability meant any infantry squad could engage armor, fundamentally changing battlefield dynamics. Comparing contemporary anti-tank weapons reveals the bazooka's advantages. The British Piat weighed 32 pounds versus the bazooka's 15 pounds, had a range of 100 yards versus the bazooka's 300 yards, suffered reliability issues in wet conditions, and featured a complex spring mechanism requiring strength to cock. The Soviet PTRD anti-tank rifle weighed 38 pounds with limited effectiveness against medium tanks, severe recoil requiring sturdy soldiers, and single-shot operation requiring precise marksmanship. The German Panzerfaust was a single-use disposable weapon with very short range of 30 to 60 meters, no sighting system, and a dangerous back-blast area. The bazooka offered the best combination of portability, effectiveness, range, and reusability. The bazooka's strategic impact extended beyond tactical employment into force structure, enabling lighter, more mobile infantry divisions. Logistics benefited from simple ammunition supply compared to anti-tank guns. Training allowed rapid conversion of civilians to tank hunters. Psychology transformed infantry from victims to hunters. Economics provided a massive cost advantage over traditional anti-tank weapons. These factors combined to give American forces significant advantages in combined arms operations. The bazooka succeeded through simplicity rather than sophistication. While Germany developed technically superior weapons, America's ability to mass-produce and widely distribute good enough technology proved decisive. By war's end, virtually every American infantry squad possessed anti-tank capability. This proliferation of firepower to the lowest tactical level exemplified American military doctrine, trusting the citizen soldier with powerful weapons and the training to use them effectively. Sometimes the best solution was the simplest one that could be manufactured by the thousands. The bazooka's development from Edward Uhl's improvised tube with coat hanger sights to a weapon that helped defeat Nazi Germany represents American industrial democracy at its finest. In just 3 years from May 1942 to May 1945, American factories produced 476,628 bazookas and over 15 million rockets, fundamentally altering the nature of ground combat. The weapon's impact was both physical and psychological. Physically, it gave infantry the power to destroy tanks at practical combat ranges. Psychologically, it transformed soldiers from potential victims into active hunters. German armoured forces, which had revolutionized warfare with blitzkrieg tactics, found themselves slowed to a crawl by the threat of rocket teams hidden in every building, hedgerow, and pile of rubble. The bazooka succeeded not through technical sophistication, but through practical simplicity. It could be manufactured quickly, distributed widely, and operated effectively by any soldier with minimal training. This combination of simplicity, effectiveness, and mass production embodied the American approach to warfare, overwhelming the enemy through industrial might rather than tactical brilliance alone. Today, every military in the world equips its infantry with portable anti-tank weapons as direct descendants of the bazooka principle. The fundamental concept of giving individual soldiers the power to defeat armoured vehicles remains as relevant now as when Lieutenant Edward Uhl fired that first rocket from his improvised launcher at Aberdeen Proving Ground in 1942. The bazooka was more than a weapon. It was democracy made manifest in steel and explosives. It proved that free workers in American factories could produce simple weapons in such quantities that they would overwhelm the products of German engineering. It validated the American faith in the citizen soldier, trusting ordinary men with extraordinary firepower. The Germans were shocked to discover that their vaunted armoured forces could be stopped by a simple tube that cost less than a week's wages for a factory worker. But that shock revealed a fundamental truth about modern warfare. In an industrial conflict, the nation that can produce the most weapons and distribute them most widely will prevail over the nation that produces the best weapons in limited quantities. The bazooka was proof that American ingenuity and mass production could triumph over complexity and craftsmanship. From the beaches of Normandy to the mountains of Italy, from the hedgerows of France to the forests of the Ardennes, the bazooka gave American soldiers the tool they needed to stand against German armour. That simple tube, born from scrap metal and coat-hanger wire, helped write the final chapter of the Third Reich, one rocket at a time.